Progressive overload is absolutely required for muscle growth in the long term. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. Now, keep in mind when we talk about progressive overload, we are talking about it in terms of increasing tension on the muscle. We are not saying moving heavier weight by any means necessary. So I want to be clear on that. Progressive overload is absolutely the primary driver of hypertrophy because, again, it is about placing more and more tension on a muscle. And here's the difference. A lot of times people will say things like, well, if you can make a weight feel as heavy as possible. Well, no, that's not always true. In some cases it is. So we need to be clear because there's a lot of different methods involved with that. There are some things that will actually increase tension without increasing the weight, right? Where you can make a lighter weight, put more tension on the muscle fibers, okay? But making it feel as hard as possible doesn't always do that. But we'll jump to that in a minute. So when we talk about progressive overload, the obvious, most easy way is to simply add weight or add reps. In other words, if you are not seeing some sort of general upward trend in performance, you need to start looking at other stuff real quick because usually that is characteristic of gaining muscle mass. In other words, I'm not necessarily talking about these one reps like these singles like this, right? If you get stronger at singles, it's most likely, or doubles, it's usually indicative that you've gained muscle, right? Or neural drive. It's not itself always a driver because we don't get a whole lot of growth stimulus from singles. Now, are we saying it's zero? No. Are we saying it doesn't contribute? No, it absolutely contributes, especially if you do it before your rep work. That's its own separate topic though. So what we are saying is, though, that could be evidence, of course, of hypertrophy, just like the ability to do more reps and stuff is evidence of hypertrophy. But whether we're talking about a chicken or an egg scenario, if we are growing, we will see a general upward trend. We have to. Whether the additional tension is the driver or it's the side effect, if it's not there, it's not a good sign. Now, that being said, you also have to meter that and measure that and weigh that out in the sense of if you're talking about a strict curl, it could take you years to put a small amount on there, okay? And I think that's the difference. Big exercises, it's easier to measure this because if you're moving, 200, 300 pounds, you see where we're going? It's not as big of a deal to add 1 kilogram or 2 pounds or whatever, 2.5 pounds. It's not as big of a deal. But when it's an exercise you can only do 30 pounds on for 10, and that's your all-out max, going to 35 for 10 could literally be 2 years worth of hypertrophy. You see what we're saying? And it would be significant, right? If it's a muscle like that, say a bicep or a tricep or something, and your full range of motion, same strict movement goes from, 30 pounds for 10 to 12 to 35, that's going to be a substantial increase in muscle mass because that's big. It's a huge percentage of the weight. But the idea here is the same. We should see an upward trend, okay? We should see an upward trend. And if it's not there, there is a problem. Again, though, it needs to scale with the size of the lift. Again, I'll get clients who do that. Man, my bicep work isn't budging. Like, okay, but did you gain a rep on your rows or 2 reps on your rows over a couple of months? Well, yeah. Okay, well, that's fine. Because then the curls are done after and, you're only using a 50-pound bar, for your curls. I mean, it's going to take a while to go up. Okay, but over time, we should see that. So yes, we have to have that progressive overload, but we need to be clear. It doesn't mean by cheating the weight up. In other words, if you start trimming range of motion on, say, the lengthened position to do it, or you're swinging more, it may not be increasing more tension. Now, does it automatically mean it isn't? Well, no, it doesn't mean it isn't. It just means it might not. But we know that if your stuff is staying consistent, we're good. Okay? The same thing if you start doing a slightly harder variation. Let's say you go into a deeper stretch, right? Or you start pausing at the bottom. Okay, that could actually be increasing tension. See what we're saying? With the same weight, with the same reps, right? Therefore, you are seeing an increased tension. But the same thing, anytime you gain reps, yeah, you're going to get more mechanical tension on some of the muscle fibers if your reps are going up. In other words, if you have a weight that with the same form, you were doing 10 reps and you get to 11 or 12, well, yeah, that counts. That is absolutely progression. Now, what I'm going to disagree with is when people start going to tempo work. Okay, like you start intentionally going slower, there's no evidence that actually causes extra growth. Now, people say, but this bodybuilder did it. Yeah, but it could be the gear at that point. So I am going to say I don't think there's real evidence for that, well, just because I'm slowing it down, that it's automatically creating more mechanical tension. That's not always the case. But I'm not telling people that they always need ballistic training type either. Not saying they need that. They can have its place, and we do a lot of it for speed work and some powerlifting. But from a hypertrophy perspective, maybe not, right? Maybe not. But conversely, going really slow is probably not doing you any favors either. Again, a normal tempo. And I think you'll find that most of the best bodybuilders always did it that way. So again, people want to use that anecdote. Well, but all the best bodybuilders just maintain a normal tempo on most of their exercises, right? Go look at all your Mr. Olympia winners. 90% of them, that's how they trained. Your guys in the top 5. Even when gear was lower. So they didn't focus on that. That's never even been anecdotally a thing. Okay? Right? It's never anecdotally been a thing. And there's no evidence of it in the lab. So I'm not saying that does it. Like we don't need to, we need to make a 20-pound dumbbell heavy. Well, no, not necessarily. Now, is it getting heavier because you're getting, say, a deeper stretch or getting stricter? Well, okay, in that case, yeah, there may be definitely something to that. In other words, that can increase tension with the same weight or with a light weight, right? Because it's putting more direct tension on the muscle and then potentially more tension on the muscle fibers. So that strategy can be perfectly viable, right? In that case, maybe the 20-pound dumbbell does feel like a 40, because you're doing it that way. But not because you slowed it down, but because you were literally going into positions and cheating less, and therefore, the muscles you're trying to work are simply working harder, right? With the same amount of weight. And that can be a smart move. That can be a smart move in many cases, but it's not necessary. It's a choice. A lot of people use looser form, and as long as the loose form stays consistent and they progress, you're still increasing tension. And you've seen that all through the bodybuilding world historically. That comes down, honestly, in my opinion, to a personal preference of where a lifter feels a muscle the most, But at the end of the day, any way you break it down, there should be progressive overload present, whether it is an increase in weight, whether it's an increase in reps, or you're just increasing tension by actually doing a harder variation of the lift, right? To where you are simply putting the muscles at an angle to where they just get hit harder with the same weight. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.